All right, welcome back to the Hoops Nerd podcast. Today, I'm really excited about our guest today. We have Krysten Peek from Yahoo Sports. You also work for Rivals and talk about high school prospects. I'm excited to ask you some questions about this draft today, Krysten, and also next year's draft. But first, thank you for coming on the show.
Yeah, happy to join you. I mean, this is the best time of the year for me. Some people say it's because of the NBA finals, but for me, it's draft season. I spent this entire year, many years prior to this, covering these players. So I'm happy to get into it.
Well, thank you for coming on. So I'm excited to have you on because this is just you know more than anybody. So anyways, I wanted to ask you about your most recent mock draft, a few things you put in there that I thought were really interesting. A couple weeks ago, you had talked about the Utah Jazz being interested in working out Bronny James. And now in your most recent article, it sounds like, and we've heard all the reports, Bronny is only going to work out for the Lakers and the Suns. I mean, is there a world where maybe the Jazz force the Lakers to trade for it? Because the Jazz have like an early second round pick. I can't remember where the Lakers pick is in the second round.
It's
Is that,
55, and they also have the 17th pick.
could they take Bronny at 17, or is that too high?
I feel like if the Lakers took Bronny James at 17 and you see who else is left on the table, they would get, just their fans would just be throwing up their hands just in like, what are we doing? Because Bronny James has proved himself to be a prospect in this draft class. He's not a first round talent. I don't think he's there yet. I think he still has a lot to go. I think we don't talk about enough about his return to the court from having, cardiac arrest, going through heart surgery, and then returning to the court 4 months later. Like, that is incredible. So to even be in this position to be drafted anywhere in the NBA is just incredibly insane, and just props to him for just sticking with it and getting back on the court, because he showed his true potential at the combine. And I think there is value in him in a second round pick. Now, the Jazz with the 32nd pick, that was a real thing. Like, they expressed interest into bringing him in. They were very interested at 32. I think where things have changed is with Rich Paul coming out and saying, we're not taking a two-way. We want guaranteed money. We're only going to work out for the Suns or Suns or the Lakers. And so, the Jazz could go to his pro day. They could talk to him maybe at the combine if they scheduled a meeting. But I think it was more so Danny Ainge just saying, we're showing interest. We think he's a valuable asset to a rebuild. He's not a finished product right now, and he's someone that we would be interested long-term in our program. And when you have someone like Rich Paul and Clutch, who is a massive organization, you cannot discredit what he's saying. And he's basically like threatening the rest of the teams. Like, you guys can pick him, but we have this guy, this guy, this guy, this guy, this guy. So if you want to do business with us in the future and our future picks, step back, let the Lakers take him. And so you're going to see a lot of movement in mocks moving up and down the board between now and the draft at the end of this month. The only player that will not change is Bronny James at 55 to the Lakers. It's pretty much, in my mind, a done deal.
So yeah, the Utah Jazz just released their new brand. So I guess Rich Paul's not interested in mountain basketball, I guess.
Well, no, he has two players on the team. So
oh, that's true. It's
you know
Colin
what I mean?
Sexton and yeah. So, okay. So maybe, who knows? But yeah, we'll see. I was just curious about that because I thought, man, I guess and you're right. Danny does call every team, and we hear rumors all the time from the Jazz. And I think it's just, like you said, I think Danny's just doing due diligence. Well, another interesting thing from your mock is you have Zaccharie Risacher now at number 1, where a lot of people have had Alex Sarr at the top. What made you do that? What was your thinking there?
Risacher has been absolutely incredible in the playoff run with JL and Borgenbress. And we saw kind of a similar rise with Bilal Coulibaly last year, just in terms of that extra time that NBA teams are getting to evaluate him in very competitive 5-on-5 action. And at the highest level of the game in the LMB Pro A League in France, he is delivering over and over again against, top teams. and he's not backing away, and he's showing different tricks other than just his catch and shoot 3-point shot, which is what he's been known for. And the as much as he's improved from last year to this year, I mean, it just screams upside to his NBA potential. I mean, he was a completely different player a year ago at Nike Hoop Summit. He barely played in the game. He barely got any minutes. And so to see the vast improvement he's made, not only offensively, but defensively, he's usually being tasked to guard their best player on the court, whether that's a point guard or whether that's a four. He usually stays off the block. But at 6'9", being able to guard the backcourt and the perimeter as well as he has, I mean, his all-around game is just incredible. And we cannot discredit the Wemby wave coming. I mean, Victor Wembanyama and Bilal have been so good this first year in the NBA. And you look at the international talent that has already produced at such a high level here in the NBA. So you're looking at Risacher, you're looking at Tijan Salon, you're looking at Alex Sarr, and it's just more, you feel more comfortable drafting a European product that has grown up the way that these players have, because it looks like their game is translating a little bit better to the NBA.
Yeah, I completely agree. And you mentioned Tijan Salon. I was thinking he might be there for the Jazz, but you have him at 5. And so it just keeps, I mean, the Jazz, not only they go from 8 to 10 in the lottery, all these good players just keep kind of falling out of their range. A player I wanted to ask you about that I personally think has a chance to be amazing, and you mentioned him here with potential superstars, Stephon Castle at number 3. I don't know what you think. When I watch him, it makes me think a little bit of kind of a Drew Holiday a little bit, where he's like a guard that can handle and defend. If the Jazz wanted to throw an offer at Houston, is that a player worth going up to try to get?
Absolutely. I think I'm higher on Steph Castle for a reason. I mean, I've seen how he's progressed, how his game has progressed from high school to college. We cannot discredit what he did in the Final Four. He was by far the best prospect on the court in that Alabama game where Nate Oates was like, okay, freshman who doesn't have a good shooting percentage, if anybody's going to beat us on the court, it's going to be you. And Stephon Castle was like, okay, here's 2 really long threes to start the first half. And I'm going to finish with 21. And we're going to then follow up our championship game. I'm going to have 15 and just be a menace, complete menace on defense. So I think in those 2 games alone, you see his upside as a two-way player and as a ball handler as well. I mean, he was asked to do a different role at UConn, but what we've seen historically from him is more of a playmaker, more of a ball handler. So I think he has that sort of potential to be the lead guard in the NBA. He's absolutely a player that the Jazz should be targeting. I just don't know if they have enough in what they would have to give up to move up to 3 or 4 where he might be.
Yeah, I mean, and it just seems to me like that would be such, I mean, we saw some great things from Keontae George this year, and it does seem like a player that could play next to, and I know we had seen reports that he says he's a point guard. Could he play next to another playmaking guard like a Keontae George and be happy?
I think so. I mean, we saw it with UConn. He had to play with Tristan Newton and Cam, and he made it work. Like, was it fluid the entire season? No. He came off an injury. He had to figure out the pace of the college game. He had to figure out the timing, but he was coached very, very hard under Dan Hurley. And as a freshman, he had a lot of pressure on him and he rose to the occasion. And so coming into his rookie year, probably being drafted to a team that's still in rebuild mode, that still needs, that player that's going to get a ton of reps right away and be asked to deliver at a high level, I think he's going to be able to perform. And I definitely think, looking back a half a season ago in December, we weren't talking about Steph Castle as a top 5 player, but just with his progression and the way his game has grown, I mean, and the way how well he shot the ball at the combine was also a credit to his hard work and his upside about how serious he is at the NBA level and what he could project, once he hits the league.
I really like him. I honestly, there'd be a lot I'd do if I was the Jazz. All right, so you have Rob Dillingham to Utah at 10. What was your thinking there? Because you have Cody Williams going 12. He's one that I'm kind of looking at. But what was your thinking with let's see, Rob Dillingham at 10 for the Jazz?
With Rob, I mean, I've said this before. I think it was a very telling thing. Danny Ainge just doesn't say things on accident just to say things. And in the postseason exit interview, when somebody asked about Keontae George as the primary lead guard for the Jazz organization, he said he doesn't see him as the franchise point guard. He sees him more
Mhm.
as the secondary supporting guard, which is great because he can slide into either spot comfortably in the backcourt. So him saying that, I mean, they might be targeting a primary guard in this top 10 now that they have 10. I think
Mhm.
Rob is a killer of a player. Like, he is a scoring machine. He's a great passer. Is he undersized? Yes. He measured in at 6'1.5" and 164 pounds at the combine. Not great.
Mhm.
He didn't go through agility, didn't go through shooting, didn't go through his pro day, citing a sore ankle. I know he's limiting his workouts. I don't know if he's worked out for the Jazz, but he is a player that could be there at 10. And where you're looking at his upside with his shot creation and the way he can create for others, if you are looking to take a swing on a guard in a rebuild process that Jazz fans in the front office might be patient for another 2 years with what's coming up with Cooper Flagg, Ace Bailey, Dylan Harper, Nolan Traore next year, AJ DeBonsa the following year, Cameron Boozer the following year. I think he is a player that you can take a gamble on.
That's well, you just mentioned Cooper Flagg, and that is my favorite thing to talk about. I want to ask, so Utah is not likely going to be competing for the playoffs next year. I mean, maybe they have something crazy this offseason, and it's looking like it's very likely that Lauri Markkanen will be on the Jazz next year. But even with Lauri Markkanen on the Jazz, the Spurs are going to be better with Wembanyama. I don't even know if Scoot Henderson is looking better and better for Portland. I'm not sure Utah's even going to be better than Portland. If Utah ends in the top 5, let's say they end up with the 5th pick, are they still going to be potentially getting a star in next year's draft if they miss out on like Cooper Flagg and Ace Bailey?
I don't know if it's a star, but you're trending in the right direction. I think next year, especially if we're looking at the way the one and done talent is going to be trending up and up and up. My favorite top 3, it goes in this order: Cooper Flagg, Ace Bailey, Nolan Traore. Then you got VJ Edgecombe and Dylan Harper. Those
Mm.
are like my 5 favorite players in the next year's draft, depending on if they can compete at the same level that they did in high school. So those aren't bad options for any team. And so, contrary to what we saw this year and what we saw the fall or the previous year, where there were multiple teams trying to strategically put themselves in a favorable position to land Victor Wembanyama, to maybe get a shot at Brandon Miller or Scoot Henderson, I think we're going to see that again next year and the year following, just with how strong and just the star power projected at the top of the next 2 drafts.
And speaking of Cooper Flagg, and Jazz fans right now they're kind of in 2 camps. They're either let's trade for a guy now and be good now, or let's be bad and just go for Cooper Flagg. And I'm personally in the Cooper Flagg. I'm calling it capture the flag next year. I would really like to go for Cooper Flagg. Can you sell to Jazz fans why it might be worth it to go for Cooper Flagg and kind of what you see him as being in the NBA?
It's so interesting because even if you decide as a fan base or an organization that you want to, I hate saying tank. We're very
Rebuild
the
or
NBA. No, in a favorable position. If you strategically want to be put in a favorable spot to possibly
there you go.
land Cooper Flag, uh, the consolation prizes aren't terrible. So even if you turn into the Detroit Pistons, where you have the worst record
Mhm.
in the NBA for 3 straight years, and you fall short of landing the number 1 pick all 3 years, the consolation prizes are still, I think, outweigh what you can get on the market in terms of like star power or upside from different prospects. Now, I don't know how patient the organization wants to be. I don't know how patient Jazz fans want to be. But what I know from scouting and from covering the next 2 draft classes is it's going to be worth it. I don't care where you are in the top 5. It's going to be worth it, and it's going to change the franchise, especially if you continue to grow and develop the young core that you already have with the Jazz. You just need that extra, you need that X factor, you need that piece to kind of solidify everything. And I think there are plenty of options, projected at the top of the next couple drafts that are very enticing to a number of teams.
Do you have any idea what the Jazz think of those guys? Cooper Flagg, Ace Bailey.
Everyone loves them. There's a reason why that there were more scouts and executives excited to be at Nike Hoop Summit than at the Final Four because of the talent that was on the court. So it doesn't matter if you are the Golden State Warriors or if you're the Detroit Pistons or the Utah Jazz. Everybody is excited about the talent coming up. And you just got to see how their game progresses and how it translates from high school to college to pro potential.
Yeah, and sorry, it's becoming a Cooper Flagg podcast a little bit, but when is he a player? Because we're looking at the Boston Celtics and the Mavericks are playing tonight, and they both have that kind of on-ball superstar player, and then you've got players like Jokic and Anthony Edwards. You kind of need that guy that can handle the ball and just run the offense and be a star in the moments you need him to be a star. Can you run an offense through Cooper Flagg, or is he more kind of off the ball? I know he's just awesome defensively, but could you run the offense through him a little bit?
I think so. I mean, we saw it at Mount Verb, arguably one of the best high school teams ever in high school history. They went undefeated, they won nationals, and the amount of talent that they had on that team, obviously Cooper was the first option, but he's so unselfish and he's such a great passer and he commands so much space just in who he is as a player. I mean, that opens up the floor for everybody else. So just him being such a smart player and recognizing those facets of the game, I think makes him kind of interchangeable with a lot of different systems and a lot of different teams in the NBA, especially when you extend the floor and the spacing and the pace. Like, he runs the floor very well. Like I said, I think one of the most underrated part of his game is his passing. Defensively, he's one of the best shot blockers in the country, regardless of class. I think he's going to be one of the best shot blockers and rim protectors in college basketball next year. We're going to see a similar offense that we saw with Kyle Filipowski, with John Shire running a lot of options through him, trying to get mismatches, trying to get him solidified in the pick and roll and pick and pop, and just trying to be smart against the competition and really play to his strengths as, what he is as a hybrid wing/4.
Yeah, and I think the big ticket next year is going to be Duke and Rutgers when they play. Hopefully they play at some point, because Bailey and Harper and I guess just one last question. Don't want to keep you too long. Have you seen Cayman Malawatch? Is that how you say it?
Come on.
Is that how you say it?
Yeah, he was at Hoop Summit. He's still kind of a raw prospect, kind of a work in progress. He was also at the G League Winter Showcase playing for the NBA Academy for Africa there. Was awesome. Really showed growth and depth to his game. You saw a little kind of juvenile tendencies during Nike Hoop Summit that'll need to be cleaned up in his 1 year at Duke. But I told Cooper this. I said, I don't know if you've seen him play at all, but you are going to be very happy that he's going to be bringing some added rim protection and kind of alleviate, the assignments that you're going to have defensively next year, especially coming in as a freshman and being expected to play against guys now that are fifth-year seniors in the ACC and beyond. So I think the two of them are going to be tremendous in the front court. And like I said, Kaman is still a little bit of a raw product, but it's going to be very, very fun to watch that Duke team next year.
Well, thank you so much, Krysten. That was a lot of fun. I was excited to ask you about Cooper Flagg. I really wanted to. But anyways, I appreciate it. Everyone go to, read Krysten. She does a great job. Her most recent, what's it called? Mock draft is up there, and I'll link to it in the SLC Dunk. So thanks a lot, Krysten. I appreciate it.
Thanks for having me. Happy to come on anytime.